Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winning Women Talk Show. I'm your host, Regina Shearer, and I'm so happy that you have decided to spend some time today with us. I don't know where you are in this world, but I hope that this is a time of the day where you can relax and enjoy the show. And thank you again for being with us. If you are a regular viewer or listener, you know that every week we feature a different woman and she tells the story of and the journey that it took for her to finally do that special something that she's passionate about, that fulfills her, that satisfies her. But more than that, that makes a difference in her life. And if you've been paying attention, the majority of these women, what they do that they're passionate about, makes a difference in other people's lives for the better. And I hope also that if you are a person who's been saying, oh, I always wanted to be or always wanted to do whatever that is, I hope that you will hear something tonight that will motivate you, that will inspire you, and that will spark a little fire and flame in you to say, you know what? If she can do it, so can I. And that's the outcome we like to know about. So we hope that you will also know you can enjoy the show by participating. And you can do that by calling us at 781 384 5587. That's 781 384 5587 on the screen. And for those of you listening, and it's you can also, if you are just a little bit phone shy, you can email me, Regina at rgbinternetradio.com. We would love to hear from you, and I know our guest would as well. And so that leads me to introducing you to our guest tonight, who is Dr. Anna Nolan. She is the superintendent of Newton Public Schools in Newton, Massachusetts. And as superintendent, Anna serves as the chief executive officer for, as she puts it, a progressive, storied school district focused to ensure every student can thrive in an increasingly diverse and changing community. And I applaud her for that. Her role includes improvement in operational effectiveness of the Newton School District programs, services, and personnel, specializing in culturally responsive teaching. Her district encompasses more than 2,500 educators and administrative and support staff who serve approximately 11,500 students. That's a lot. Prior to being the superintendent of public schools in Newton, she was superintendent of Natick Public Schools, and she was principal of Wilson Middle School, a teacher and educational leader in various roles in Framingham, Mass. And there's more. But you can see that she loves education. She serves on numerous boards and organization committees as an educational consultant, a publisher, a presenter, and workshop leader. And she's received numerous awards and recognitions. She earned her Bachelor's of Arts degree in English from Middlebury College, master's degree in adolescent psychology from Harvard University, and her doctorate in educational leadership from Boston College. Welcome, Anna, to the Winning Women Talk Show. We're so glad to have you here with us.
Thank you, Regina. So pleased to be here.
Well, it's the norm, so this part may not at all shock you or surprise you that I'm going to ask you. Please tell us about Anna. Tell us about your journey. What got you to this point of being the superintendent of Newton Public Schools? And if I may add, because I want to toot her horn for her, the first female superintendent of schools in Newton. So if you would share your journey, what it was like, how you got here.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So I grew up in a small town in northern New Hampshire. I am one of 9 girls, and just a very small town, sort of mill town in northern New Hampshire. Um, Parents were very education focused, but had no plan for us to really attend college. Knew that getting out of high school was really important. Um, but I had an English teacher in ninth grade, Bob Corrigan, rest his soul. He was just pivotal in every way that someone can be pivotal for a student. Not only was he an English teacher and just blew my mind open with all of the literature that he was teaching us and the thinking and the writing, he really went to bat for me with my father, who he had played basketball with in high school, but Bob had gone off to Dartmouth and then came back to teach in his hometown, and really told my dad, like, she's got a shot here at something bigger than just staying here and getting married and doing family things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that was sort of the plan for my sisters and I. And he was not for it. He was like, I can't help you with it. It's not my vision for you. But Bob really intervened. Bob helped me take my SATs, drove me to some college interviews, really was my champion in that. And I thought, there is no higher calling that I could ever want to be but an English teacher. And I was an English major and an education minor. And it was hard. Middlebury College was a place of privilege in a lot of ways. My next door neighbor was the Prime Minister of Jamaica's daughter, just a very different environment that I had ever grown up in. But I knew instantly that the teaching was the thing that I was going to do. So, fast forward, opportunities came from being at Middlebury. I got into a teacher excellence program, which meant I could teach in New York City for 2 summers, and had some really, really incredible professors and teachers in the New York City public schools. And then we took kids from the city who were gang involved and brought them to Black Rock Forest out by West Point. And just an incredible experience watching really tough gangbangers suddenly be hiding under your arm when they saw insects and bats, because they'd never been in that environment before and had never been in the dark really before. So just really sort of laying the foundation for me, for what it meant for students to feel cared for, belong, to work in highly diverse environments with teams of teachers and kids, and think about what it means to be truly culturally responsive and personalized for young people. So I had the bug, and when I got into Harvard for my master's degree, my father said to me, I just didn't know that our people could do things like this. And at that time he said, I'm going to do something for you and your sisters and make sure. And so all of them have had the chance to go to college in some fashion and form. And it was sort of so I guess I'll say that's kind of the first advocacy moment I had, although it was not intended to be that way. And then I landed a job in the Framingham Public Schools, and I was an English teacher and a theater teacher in middle school. I love 7th graders. They are just my favorite. And I thought that was what I would be my entire life. I was so happy with it. But when you are teaching in teams and there's leadership churn within your school system, you start to have some thoughts like, I wonder if I could do that and do it better. I wonder if I could be as culturally responsive and caring and mentoring of teachers as the way we want to be for students. And so that sort of became the next iteration. No one ever is 5 years old and says, I want to be a principal. And certainly no one says, I want to be a superintendent of schools. So I don't want to say it's an accident. I want to say I didn't intend it. But once you understand how hard teaching is and how important the work is, when you see a leadership vacuum, you want to fill it, or at least I want to fill it. And so that's been the journey for leadership, and moving out of the teaching role, which was really hard for me to do because I loved it so much. I still miss it.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's really like the hardest part is that you aren't as deeply connected to the children. And as I've gotten into bigger and bigger environments, it's harder and harder to stay connected to the kids. But I do find ways to do that. Even as a superintendent, I have interns. I still teach classes. During COVID, I subbed into classes in my former district in Natick, just because we were so short staffed, just from all the illness and everything. So just, there's ways to stay connected, but it gets harder and harder. But really trying to hone the leadership skills that allow me to advocate for teachers in the way they deserve to be advocated for. And as you and I discussed a little bit previously, I also feel a real obligation to up and coming women leaders and women leaders of color who are the next generation of our profession, and trying to be the Bob Corrigan for them and the champion so that they can navigate some of the challenges a little differently. Being the first woman superintendent in both districts that I've been superintendent has just been really eye-opening. And there are things that are hard that shouldn't have to be hard. And for our women of color colleagues, they face double the amount of challenge and assumptions about competence and about their ability to be CEOs of educational environments, even though our profession is dominated by women and really powered by the majority women in our field. So that's the passion part for me, that I just can't imagine not being that advocate for my profession and the women and men and students in it.
Well, just out of curiosity, what was the defining moment when you knew, um, I've got to get to the point in leadership where I can be this kind of advocate and mentor and encourager for women, in to see not only what is required of them in curriculum development, but to see what's required of them in terms of being culturally responsive. When did that really sink in? What was the defining moment?
So I probably was like 28, I think, because I became a principal. I moved to administration when I was 29, and I was principal by 30.
Wow.
I was so undone by my principal at the time, who just sort of was a no-show to all the tough parts of our faculty needs. And it wasn't enough to just keep the trains running on time, if you will. Like you can have a schedule, you can, address certain things with kids, but teachers have learning needs and adult professional practice needs and an ethic of care in order to do the grueling work that is the day-to-day work of a public educator. And there just was a disconnect. So being the type of person I am, we weren't at odds with this principal per se, but I was in the office a lot advocating. I was starting to tire of the sound of my own voice doing and sort of going unheard. And, I got tapped to be in this leadership development program where they sort of sub you out to get your credential to become a principal. Right. And he tolerated that, but he didn't really give me anything meaty to do. And so I had a woman vice principal in that building, and she really, helped give me tasks to do. But she wasn't the principal, and it was difficult to get all my hours and all that. And I just felt like it was some gatekeeping. And that was when he had a conversation with me. There was an opening, a vice principal opening, and I wanted to apply for it. And he said, listen, you're a young woman, you haven't had children yet. Like you need to just put all this on the back burner. And it was part of his cultural upbringing and his way of thinking about women. He was a very traditional man, but he was leading my workplace. And like, that was just one slice of the thing he said to me. So all the things that he was purportedly saying to others and not taking up their leadership chops were just as good as his. And other people could have been tapped in the building and enriched, and we could have become this very high functioning team. And I realized I can't stay here. I can't stay here because he's not letting me on the team. And even if I was, I'm not sure that I would be well served by that. So I left to take on my first administrative job to Natick, and I stayed there 20 years after that, and just worked my way up to the superintendent role. But that was the moment where I thought, I just can't stay here. And now I feel like I've got to be out there saying the things and doing the work and
Right.
pushing.
So when you went to Natick, you went as an assistant principal.
Mm-hmm.
Were there challenges even to that for a woman to seek that role?
Well, both my age at the time and my gender were. Now, there was a female principal there. That female vice principal, she went and became principal over here. And so I followed her. Her name is Ruth Evans. If Ruth is
Uh,
out there listening,
yeah.
she's
Okay.
still in my life and was really, really strong
Okay.
and visionary. We had a great time, and we had another vice principal who was an experienced male. But I beat out a 40-year veteran male teacher who was in the Wilson School for that job, and that was a tough couple of years. But to that gentleman's credit, it started out kind of crusty, but over the next couple of years before his retirement, he was like, "You were the rookie of the year. We all knew it. You know, you served us so well." And I remember being pretty lonely at times there because, I didn't teach with these folks, and yet I was still very fresh out of my teaching, and that camaraderie you have with your teaching team, especially in middle schools, because you are grouped on very specific teams. I was missing that. But I was close enough to the work that I could really serve them well. And I mean, I had a life, 20 years of Natick connections from being in that district and really being, the servant leader that brought that district to another level.
Well, you just hit on something that just received a email for. It says, "Hello, Anna. I am an English teacher as well in New Hampshire, and what they want to know is uh, there's. Let me just read it. I admire you greatly. I wish that they had more mentors like you in this state because truly men are still in in the lead, and that's in quotes.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to be able to belong to the New Hampshire Women in Higher Education, but I'm not in higher education. I'm in secondary. And so the question I have for you is what no. The question I have for you is when you realized that you were going to candidate for the assistant principal position, what did you do to prepare for your interview?
So I actually reached out to other educators in other school districts, and I went and shadowed them for a day. And I chose leaders who sort of I knew were different styles. I had a professor at when I was getting my principal credential who, always seemed so sure of himself. He was like, you got to know your values and you got to stick them out there and like have your brand. And I was like, I'm not sure what my brand is. Like I haven't worked for a principal yet that really like feels like me, that I never had a female leader. There was a lot of talk about being tough and all this, stuff, which yeah, sure, you got to be tough as a leader at times, but there's all kinds of other parts to the leadership craft. And, I was young, so I just wanted to go see it myself. I wanted to spend time with different leaders. So I picked 10 different folks that I went and spent the day with. Now, I had the luxury of being released in this program from my teaching job to do this. And instead of staying with my principal that didn't really want me to be the vice principal there, I went and visited other people. And that
Okay.
was really good for me to do because there, every school has its own culture and every district has its own culture. And it's really important to kind of go and visit and see what you want to be like. And if you've been teaching in the same public school and you're just not finding the leadership vibe there, I would encourage you to go to a different school. I know that's easier said than done, and especially in a small state like New Hampshire, where my sisters are still there. So some of them are teachers, and you get stuck into a district and you think you can't ever leave. You absolutely can. People are in high demand in our profession. Leaders are in high demand. The turnover rate right now is quite high because the work is very hard. So I would encourage you to reach out. And that said, Massachusetts has really made an effort, and I've been holding the flag on this effort for 16 years now, of having women educational leadership networks, deliberately having them, and affinity spaces for women, women of color, LGBTQ women. There are specific support needs that different women groups and men groups need. But when I started being a principal, the men groups, like the professional associations, were men. And we made a very deliberate decision as a state association about what to do about that. That was when I was an assistant superintendent, and all of us were assistant superintendents, and we all looked around and said, we are the ones who are next to go to the superintendency. We better start making these networks. And so we made principal support groups and superintendent mentor networks, and that's just grown and grown. But that was a very deliberate statewide effort, which, anybody can start those types of efforts, but you just have to sort of find the power players in your state.
Wow. This email says, "Hello, Dr. Nolan. I am so pleased you are on this show tonight. I don't know how Regina found you, but I'm glad she did. You are very inspiring and I admire you greatly.
Thank you.
I am a superintendent in the state of New York. I am male, and I applaud you for having not only the guts, but the perseverance and persistence to apply for the assistant principal position. I cannot even imagine how that came across to your peers that you no your the peers of the faculty members that were candidating against you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in college. Everyone knows that faculty aspire to become the dean and then move up to the chair of the department. It's expected that would be the route. You came out of nowhere. I love that. I love that sense. You came out of nowhere and still got the job. 2 questions. The program you mentioned near West Point, I'm not familiar with it. Can you please tell us a little bit more about it? Does it still exist? And the second point is, continue to do what you do. Maybe one day you'll be the head of the DOE of this nation.
Oh, goodness. I don't know that I wish that on anyone right now. So the program so as a student at Middlebury at the time had a teacher preparation program. I'm sad to say that about 10 years after I graduated, Middlebury and I remember it distinctly, said, we are not a vocational training program. And they got rid of that teacher certification. Those sort of like little Ivies. Sometimes they keep them, sometimes they don't. But it was Middlebury was a member of the Consortium for Excellence in Teacher Education. It was called SEAT, and it was Barnard, Columbia, the Seven Sisters, Bates, Bowdoin, Colby. So there was Reader's Digest, if you all remember Reader's Digest at the time, and the DeWitt Clinton Foundation gave a grant to the SEAT Consortium and Barnard College, and they called it the Institute for Urban Education. And that consortium had a research study associated with it where students from diverse backgrounds, college students, did this program where they took us to Barnard each summer, and we lived there and we taught in the public schools. And then in the summer, we took students to Black Rock Forest and they studied us for 2 years. And I don't know if any of you remember the Real World show on MTV where they used to film people living together. It was kind of like that. And I'm pretty sure I was supposed to be the clueless white woman from New Hampshire that was on the thing. I mean, I remember vividly in the report afterwards, they were like, and she remarked that there was so much grass in New York City. I mean, I sounded like such a bumpkin or something. I'm certain I never said that, but so they studied this. And so part of it was a diverse group of people living and working together in diverse schools. Because, and I believe that then, and I believe it now, the future of our schools and our nation is very diverse. It is multilingual, it is multicultural, it is Black, Brown, and Asian. It is we need to be preparing our workforces and our schools and our educators for that diverse future reality. This program knew that then and was preparing people to be urban educators. And so I don't know that it exists now. I know that the head of the Barnard program, the IUE Institute for Urban Ed, has passed. But I don't know if it has gone on.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. But that speaks volumes, and I'm not surprised Middlebury, um, it was one of these schools that if you were looking, especially literature, English literature and
Mhm.
education, becoming an educator. So, but you took advantage of a great program that changed your life,
Mhm.
and it's changed the lives for others in education. For those of you who have just joined us, you've been listening to Dr. Anna Nolan, and she is the superintendent of the Newton Public School System in Newton, Massachusetts. She's been sharing her journey and the work that she's passionate about in her current role. And so we're going to take a quick break. But before we do that, again, we want to invite you to participate. You are welcome to call. The phone lines are available. So you can call at 781 384 5587, 781 384 5587. And especially those of you who are listening, please, we'd love to hear from you if you're just listening over the radio. But we want to hear from you if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook Live as well. Or you can email me, Regina, at rgbinternetradio.com. So as I said, we're going to take a quick break for one of our sponsors. It's only a short break, so don't go too far, but run to that refrigerator and grab that drink or whatever you need right now, and we will be right back.
At Portal to Hope, we're here to help victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking crimes. We provide support, resources, and hope to those who need it most. We believe that everyone deserves to live a life free from violence. If you or someone you know is in danger, please reach out for help. Call us at 781-338-7678. We offer a variety of services including counseling, legal aid, job assistance, and housing support. We also work to raise awareness about these issues and to advocate for change. Together, we can create a world where everyone is safe and free from violence. Portal to Hope is here for you.
And we are back with Dr. Anna Nolan. Anna, I just wanted to ask you, you had mentioned I think it's WELN, is the Women Education Leadership Network.
Mhm.
So is that something newly started? Has it been around for a while?
It's been around about 20 years.
Okay.
I've been in there 16 years in the state. And it's an emergent from the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. And there's a very robust network among superintendents in Massachusetts. Like, they are our brothers and sisters. And when they call, you pick up. And then within that, there's been a real recognition, which has evolved over time to become more culturally responsive, that women and different affinity groups need additional supports within the state,
Right.
and has actually worked to sort of lead upwards to the Department of Education in Massachusetts to provide the funding and the pipeline programs to develop educators of color, women educators, and really put some money towards these support networks. So it started out very informally, like very small committees of passionate individuals, and now it's grown into a pretty significant statewide network.
I have another email for you. I'm just taking them as they bing while you're talking. Uh, it says, "Hello, Anna. I am amazed that you have come so far so quickly. I know a couple of superintendents, and indeed, it took them 40 years to get there. So, my question is, when COVID came, did you and your association of superintendents Were you the collective unit that made determinations about remote learning?
Yes, and thank you everyone for maybe thinking that I'm not 40 years in. I'm 33 years in, so it did take some time to get here. So COVID was, if you led through COVID, that was a whole different brand of leadership. I feel like I aged 10 years in that time period. Now, understand that in my district at the time, I was in Natick a total of 20 years. When COVID hit, I'd been there 15 years. So I would say that in the district did well in COVID because of some investments and planning that we had done previously. And they had a trusted superintendent who had been with them for 20 years. So I had a lot of money in the bank, so to speak, and social capital in the bank for COVID with families and teachers. The state was in the same disarray as everyone in the United States and the world was at that time. So I guess you could say there was some loose aspects of COVID leadership and some tight aspects of COVID leadership. But our roundtable, so Metro West is the cities from Boston to Worcester along the Route 9 corridor. And I'm the Tri-County Superintendent Roundtable President for that area. We are very close, and we made a very concerted effort to try to do things in a similar fashion, to try to talk to each other very, very often. Our state Department of Education seemed to be reeling for weeks. And so we, again, it was very ground up, and we were not 100% aligned. And it was really hard because we were very close and we were, very connected. And then we started to do things very differently, and families would compare us, and, people would say, oh, well, they're doing this better than you're doing this. And it just created so much drama during COVID. So like everyone, we did some good things well and aligned together, and then we were all on our own.
I'll be honest with you. I felt very deeply. I had retired by then, but I felt very deeply for educators because they caught it every direction that it was coming from. I thought, however, that there was a good that came out of it, and that was the understanding and recognition of how many families are not technologically up to date or even engaged within their homes. And I thought that was an eye-opener. I was impressed with the schools that reached out to help provide things, internet, laptops, tablets, whatever. In that time for you, though, as you said, you had like a little corridor of districts that were pretty much working together to produce hopefully the same great results. What was the greatest challenge for you at that time?
Even though I had been in the district for a long time, the issues of fear and trust that came up for the entire world at that time have really shaken our profession, and we're still not recovering from it. You're right. There was this moment where we were taking care of each other and trying to bust up some of those equity issues that came to light. What children had support at home, who had access to digital equity. I mean, there were a lot of things that it just accelerated. We were a pretty technologically advanced district. So I was able, like in 2 days after closure, we were the first district in Massachusetts to close because we had patient zero was a parent in our district. And we had a pretty easy time pivoting to digital instruction because we had been doing it. And so I was proud of my teachers. I knew that parents were going to be coming into their, seeing them in their homes. And I had no worries about what was happening. But a lot of districts didn't have those resources or the training, and they had a very different experience. And so depending on what you saw in that time period, you either thought, wow, teachers, unbelievable people who are, pivoting yet again and finding a way to reach children in this new way, and look at how my child responds to them and all that. And then some districts where it just didn't go well. And, there's a lot of residual anger and mistrust. and I would say that in my new district, there were a lot more trust issues. Of course, it's a much more urban system. The scale of it, the buildings and the infrastructure weren't as up to date as Natick schools. So I think it really, depended on a variety of factors in your district, how that went for you. And there was like a hot minute in the United States where everyone was like, the teachers, they're amazing. Look what they're doing. And then everybody was angry again about all the things.
Yes.
And it was a dangerous time. Like as a superintendent and a school committee, like we had a lot of very angry people, coming to meetings, really some dangerous moments, just people were worried for their lives. And, that I'm glad that we could be a secure home base for our children and families as much as we could be while all that swirled. And I think we made a big difference in the lives of our kids, and we took care of each other. I mean, that was the part, I would go and run some of the COVID clinics, and just so I could see the teachers, they would drive through and get their noses swabbed. And I just wanted to see them and let them know, like, you are still part of this great organization, and I know how hard you're working. And we found new ways to try to find the joy and try to support each other. But it was tough time.
Oh, and in a number of ways, in many, many ways that were not at all directly a result of how the curriculum changed or how that teacher handled teaching remotely.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it had to do with we're all stuck in the same place at the same time, and we're not used to this.
Mm-hmm.
And students, I was laughing because towards the end of it, people were talking about, well, these kids they lack social skills. They live online. They don't care about that. And all I'm thinking is there is a hallway mentality where the students collect in between when the bells ring and they connect at that time, and they miss that, and they can't have the hallway moments online.
Well, and the adults missed it too. And that was the part, and I think we're seeing the effects of that now, about all that isolation and what that meant to us. Learning is a social activity, and schools serve so many purposes for student mental health and preparation and socialization. That's why we have them. And, we're still working on addressing the deficits of that time period.
Yeah.
But things are markedly better each year.
This email says, hello, Dr. Nolan. Please answer this question for me. We are losing teachers. We don't pay them well. We don't retain them well. With the shortage of teachers and also what appears to be students, how are you planning ahead to address that situation? Or do we still have to look at classrooms that are going to be reaching the level of 50 per class versus 30 or 40?
Well, these are the questions of the moment, listener. That is what superintendents are balancing. And in Massachusetts, with the second lowest fertility rate in the United States, the average school-age population is diminishing, especially in suburban populations. We are worried about this. We are worried about the rise of the voucher movement in the national scene and what that may do to public school funding. We are worried about those strands of mistrust that came out during COVID. Many consumers of public schools are looking at, what are my other options, because I didn't like what I saw when I was in COVID, or I'm tired of not getting exactly what I want in a personalized way. So, our state is continuing to explore all the types of alternative education, redefining high school, really trying to find more pathways to engage students. But also these pipeline and support programs to mentor our future educator generations. Yes. And that's where I'm putting my money, is on tapping the women and men who need to now take the reins when we retire within the next decade. And that's coming very quickly. And I would say it is the perfect time, if you are considering a career in leadership, to come to public education, because this next moment is the most diverse, the most interesting, the most opportunity, and the most innovative, if you want it to be. And we have to do it. We can't do things the same way. That's what we're learning. We have to adapt with the time. So I don't mind being in that change place. I think it's time for us to think about that. So lots of innovative school models are coming out. Some that I like, some that I don't like. But the best thing we can do is to keep encouraging people to go into this type of public service.
Right. I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask you. I don't know if people are aware that there is now um, a distrust in public education that is starting to grow, coming from a lot of areas of, I'll say, impact and influence. For the work that you do as superintendent and the education that you're doing for your teachers, where is your focus in helping them to build that trust? Or
Mhm.
and I'll say more about that. I'll just stop right there.
Yeah, so after COVID, I decided I wanted to take on a different challenge for myself and see if I could scale what I thought I knew in my Natick cocoon, if you will, if I could scale it to a bigger district like Newton. And my first 6 months on the job, the teachers union went on work to rule and the longest strike in Massachusetts history. And that time period was like post-COVID, lack of trust, the parents not being happy with the COVID learning conditions and all of the complexity of what Newton had to deal with there. And they blamed the teachers. There was a lot of blame on the teachers. And, certainly could educators and the system have done things differently? Sure. But there was no playbook for COVID that people handed out to us in leadership school. And people did the best they could with the resources and experiences that they had. So trust was the issue and continues to be for our district. I have tried to solve that the old-fashioned way, which is FaceTime and getting people into the schools and getting into the community. So my first year, I did 69 barbecues. I said to all the families, if you can get 25 people together in your neighborhood, cul-de-sac, garage, backyard, street, I will come and we should talk to each other and let me hear what you're thinking about and let me tell you what I'm about. And now that sort of morphed into a regular rotation of meetings I now know exist in the district. I didn't know then, but when I went to all the barbecues, I knew. I started to know what the big meetings and the big players were in the city. I didn't eat one thing at these barbecues. They were really just like meet and greets. And that was just like talking, standing there.
Yeah.
But it is that FaceTime. It is that personal touch. And
Yes.
we have a new mayor who really gets that as well. He's out there doing summer meetups and ice cream scoops, and it is the togetherness that keeps us from splintering out. Does it solve everything? No, but at least people can say, hey, you're that school lady, right? Yeah, I got some questions for you. All right, hit me. That kind of warmth and transparency and like being able to reach out. I respond to every single email that's personally to me because I need to.
Right.
And it's not like I don't have like some like hero mentality. This district got very fractured and they need human people to sew it back together. And so my team and I, we have done community engagement activities. We are refreshing the volunteerism that totally fell out of the schools during COVID. We're starting a program with senior citizens to tutor kids in the middle school with math. These aren't new rocket science ideas, but they all went away during COVID. Our mayor is having summer movie nights outside, just more arts and culture activities. And those types of things are really bonding the community back together. Are we always going to sing Kumbaya over everything? No, we're not. There's plenty to divide us, but it's a little harder when you're constantly together doing other things, celebrating children, watching showcases. People who come in for our career days or volunteer in our career technical high school, these things help them see the challenge of public education and the promise of it. And so that has to happen. Is it an immense amount of work? Yes. Do we have to do it? No. But if we don't, like the listener just said, people are just going to look for other options, and I don't want them to. Public schools transformed my life. If I hadn't had that experience, that teacher, I don't know what would be happening to me. Every kid deserves that. And in a city like Newton, where there's immense wealth and then immense poverty, you can't leave it to chance. Like, you have to be that school for everybody. So that's our strategy right now. We do talk a lot about our sort of burnout situation, and like, can we keep it going? So, we worry about that too. But if we aren't going to keep carrying the flag, who will?
Right. So you said something that triggered me about with an email that I had looked at but hadn't presented to you. And that question was about the voucher system. And the question was, Newton has a split wealth community. And how do you feel about the voucher system? So I'm going to ask you to think about that, because we're going to take another quick break from one of our sponsors. And again, there's still time. Call us at 781-384-5587 if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make to Dr. Nolan, or you can email me, Regina at rgbinternetradio.com. Now we're going to take another quick break, but we will be right back.
Life can be unpredictable, and when those moments occur, you want the assurance that your family and property are protected. Sabatino Mastrocola Insurance Agency provides insurance coverage and security for every situation: home, life, flood, car, personal, or property. We're here to help you protect what matters most: your future. We are a full-service insurance agency providing experienced experts who speak Spanish, Portuguese, and English to assist you in acquiring the type of insurance coverage you need. That's the Sabatino Mastrocola promise. Contact us at 617-387-7466 or on our website, www.sabatino-ins.com. Get peace of mind today for uncertain tomorrows.
And we're back with Dr. Anna Nolan, who is the superintendent of the Newton Public Schools. And so I left you with time to think about the voucher system and its impact. And what are your thoughts about that?
Well, on its face, it looks like a threat to public education funding. If families can receive tax breaks to put their money in other types of schools other than public schools, that could be difficult. It does require states to vote to accept this voucher system. So in a state like Massachusetts, I think it's unlikely that our state will vote to allow that, but it's unclear to us what will happen at the federal level with just an overall reduction in public school, in tax dollars. Will public school somehow be, receiving less because there's a formula, like if so much money goes towards private and parochial voucher tax write-offs, will that be pulled out of our national? So that's a real worry. I haven't heard any counter narrative to that from our federal leadership. So, and with the dismantling of the Department of Education at the federal level, this is a huge concern to us, a huge concern. Our state is deeply grappling with rising costs and funding that has not kept pace. So that is a real threat. And what we don't want is what we have seen in Newton, although I've been interviewing all the folks who send their kids to private school and really trying to understand what would it take for you to not do that? What would it take? Just that little incremental piece. And you'd be surprised to know that it's small things that really make a difference and personal things that make a difference for each family who makes decisions to go. In our city, there's a wide range of reasons people go to private school, but the major reason is religious expectations. And so, that's a different problem to solve than if people are leaving your schools because the quality of what's happening there is not top notch. So we've been sifting through that. And because new options like, for example, the online Alpha School nationwide, which is an AI-driven school, are coming up, every family is going to have to grapple with this conversation with themselves. Who are we? What kind of schooling do we want? What do we want to spend that way? That's going to come up. That said, our national organization, the Association of Superintendents Nationwide, has done work, as has an organization called Leading Now, which is a superintendent's communication support group. And the national testing is that most people are satisfied with public schools across the nation, and that confidence levels, one tweak in one area, what would make you say that your school is better? And it's little things like more after school opportunities, or more chance to know my child's teachers and friends. I mean, it's very low effort things that would change the mind of the average person. So I want that challenge. That's what I want to work on, so that we just make those tweaks and people feel cared for and feel like I am seen in that school district. I belong here. And that does dovetail with the leadership pipeline and development piece I said to you before.
Right.
I deliberately, with targets, with our HR department, saying, what is our student demographic population and our family population, and our leaders and staff should look like and sound like those numbers. And we are being very deliberate about how we're doing that, and having statewide events to call that out. We had a Black Men of Color educator event last spring with the sole express purpose to recruit individuals from across the state to come work with us.
Right.
So, and to also provide professional development and community for our district.
Right. So a lot of thoughts are going through my mind when we're talking about this voucher system, because first and foremost, it's not as if there's a type of teacher that's being produced through higher education that is the only kind you can hire at these private schools. And if people can find a way financially to start with vouchers or sending their students to that, they're going to need more teachers. And where are they going to get those teachers? So they're going to get them from the public schools. So I hate the thought that people would actually believe that the educators produced in general are not all capable of being able to teach in private schools.
Agreed. I mean, the training is the training, right? And in many cases, private schools don't require training at all. I mean, you can ascend to those positions without the types of licensure that our teachers are required to have. I think that it just, I'm sure you're seeing this in the higher ed area as well. Like, we have to do it differently. There has to be a different way of prepping. There has to be a different way of getting teachers who come from different backgrounds and who want to give to this profession. There's no teacher type.
Yes.
And that's, that is the charm of this work for me, is to find those candidates who really unlock something for kids. Private schools have the same. But I do want to say that for the most part, private schools do not compensate their teachers as well as public schools do. So then if I'm a private school parent, I want to know then where my dollars are going to, what exactly, if it isn't to the teaching and the teachers, is it going to facilities? Is it going to athletics? I mean, I guess you can have that calculus with yourself. I want that to go to the teaching. I want that. I mean, with great pride, Middlebury College gets good teaching credential awards as a college, which is not something that a lot of universities and colleges are worried about, right? They're worried about scholarship or research. But how students receive the information matters deeply. And it's what stokes that passion and the connection. So I guess it really depends what the consumer, if you will, is looking for, which is why we are out there in the neighborhoods talking about what we do, really making those connections and featuring our teachers. I have a podcast that's called the Superintendent's Secret Sauce Podcast. And what I do is I highlight the teachers with their secret sauce. Like, what's your special thing? You're a bright spot teacher. You're getting consistently high results from kids. How come? And what is it? Tell us your story. What do you do with kids? So that parents get excited when they hear that. I also do it with students. And we just started a new podcast with our new strategic plan, which is the Thrive 2030 plan, called the Thrive Hive. So what happens to help kids thrive in our district? So there'll be more of that coming out this year. I have 2 really great interns this year from the high school, and they're helping me with that.
Well, I cannot believe our time has come to an end. There's so many things, and there's a few more emails. But anyway, I want to say that I think that our educators, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, are super sauce. And I'm talking about not post-secondary, elementary, secondary education. Our public school system are full of super sauce teachers, because your kids can't even go to college unless they have all the foundation and preparation from their previous education. And so I'm not saying there aren't some very, 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 very bright students who probably don't need to go to college at all, but the foundation is laid in the schools that you oversee in your district. 11,500 students. That's a big responsibility. And so for you to have the super sauce 2,500 educators taking care of that is amazing. So I want to thank you, because you truly are a winning woman. And I hope that you will be able to continue to advocate for, influence, and mentor and motivate educators to continue doing what they do. And I wish you well in the challenges of tomorrow.
Thank you, Regina. And thank you for the option to tell all about our public school story and leadership journey. Appreciate it.
Well, we thank you for being on the show. And we want to thank each and every one of you for spending time again with us. And I know that you got a lot out of this show. I know that somebody is saying right now, I'm glad I became an educator. And I know someone else is saying, I'm glad I'm in the education track at college. And so we hope that all things will go well, not only for the Newton public school systems, but for our school districts and systems across this nation. If what she wants to do, helping educators become culturally responsive educators of the future, that's going to make the most positive difference in this nation. So we wish you well, and thank you so much again for being on the Winning Women Talk Show.
Thank you. Thanks.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, for the Winning Women Talk Show. And remember, have a great weekend and love somebody.